Well, good evening. Cut myself off before I got on. How is everyone this evening? Welcome to Talk Therapy Live with S. Candy Winfield of Suddenly Professional Counseling. Going to give a few minutes to allow people to join us. I see that I do have some viewers already in the studio and in the with me. So put your name in the chat so I know who's with me this evening, and we're going to start our juicy conversation of part two of the characteristics or the ingredients of a great relationship. So bear with me, and we're going to get started in a few minutes. Just give a few more people an opportunity to join us. Good evening. How is everyone? Let's see. We have Noreen. Hey, Noreen, welcome tonight. So glad that you can join me. Also have Jasmine on tonight. Thank you. Thank you for being with me tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about two very, very important ingredients to a successful relationship and a great relationship. And that's going to be boundaries and forgiveness. And so, if you're in a relationship, you've had to exercise both of those. So, we're just going to have a dialogue tonight about that. So, again, welcome. Come on in, and I am going to get started in about 30 seconds. So, thank you for joining me. This is Talk Therapy Live with S. Candy Winfield. So, again, welcome. This is part two of a four-part series. I'm going to be coming live every Monday in the month of February, which is, of course, the month of love. So I'm going to be talking about, of course, love and relationships. And what I'm going to be talking about specifically is the ingredients for a successful relationship. Last week, we talked about the ingredients of empathy, validation, kindness, and honesty. Again, very important ingredients and not in any particular order of importance, but that they're all important. And just like when you're baking a cake and you put in ingredients, if you leave one ingredient out, it's going to be off a little bit. It's going to taste funny. Same thing with a great relationship. If there is an ingredient that is necessary that you leave out, it's just not going to work. It's not going to feel good. And so we are going to be talking about all of the ingredients over the month of February that allow for a relationship to be great, to feel good being in the relationship. So, again, my name is Candy Winfield. I am a licensed professional counselor and the president of Suddenly Professional Counseling. So, tonight, as I said, the topic and the ingredients that we're going to be talking about tonight are boundaries and forgiveness. I'm also going to switch up the format a little bit tonight because last week um, I gave information and kind of tried to have a dialogue, but I realized that in this format, in the StreamYard, can't really have a dialogue because you all are viewing. And of course, you can put in the chat, but it's not like we're having a dialogue. And I think I'm so used to teaching and having a dialogue with my participants that it kind of threw me off. So I decided tonight, rather than try to do it that way, that I'm going to present the material. I do want you to put your comments in the chat as I go. And then at the end, I'm going to go back and read through the chat, answer and respond to your comments and your questions. And you state, please use the chat, put your comments in the chat, put your question. And again, at the end, I'm going to leave time so that I can go back and then respond and kind of have a dialogue that way. It was just kind of throwing me off trying to read the chat and present the material and then go back to the chat. So we're going to try this tonight, see if that works. If it doesn't work, then we'll tweak it again and see where we go. So again, I am going to bring my slides into the presentation. so that you can see them. And again, we're talking about the ingredients for a successful relationship. And here we have all of the ingredients kind of going into the pot. You see boundaries, honesty, appreciation, gentleness, affection, of course, communication, trust, validation, respect, thoughtfulness, vulnerability. All of these are absolutely necessary for a successful relationship. And again, not so much in any um, order or any level of importance, they're all necessary. They're all necessary. And depending on what's going on in the relationship, their importance does kind of change. Tonight, as I said, we're going to be talking about boundaries and forgiveness. So, in any thriving, healthy, feel good relationship, a healthy, thriving, feel good relationship doesn't just happen. It takes work, it takes effort, it takes intention and being deliberate in order to have that kind of relationship. You have to make it happen. And as you can see, again, there are many ingredients that are required. Most of these characteristics have to happen at the same time, which can be quite a task, right? But also, depending, as I said, what's going on in the relationship, it depends on which one kind of takes precedent. For instance, if there's been some kind of violation, it might be important to enter into forgiveness or to extend forgiveness. So it really kind of depends on what's going on in the relationship. And let me just check the chat. Let me welcome people and see who's coming in. Um, okay. So knowing just like any recipe, you have to add the right ingredients at the right time. And the ingredients of a relationship are the same. You have to know what to put in, what to focus on at the right time to kind of make it work. We don't necessarily arrive in these relationships and in our relationships having all of these skills and knowing all these tools. Sometimes it's trial and error. Sometimes we show up with what we quote unquote first got at home. That may or may not work. And so, again, sometimes it's necessary to educate ourselves, to teach ourselves, to get some information and be willing to be deliberate and intentional in terms of showing up with your best self at the relationship in the relationship. So tonight, again, we're going to talk about boundaries and forgiveness. And when we talk about boundaries, and we're all familiar with personal boundaries, we all know about our own personal boundaries. We know that boundaries are necessary, right? Anybody know that boundaries are necessary? We know that boundaries protect, they define, and the wonderful thing about boundaries is that they work. They work when you exercise them. And they work in terms of keeping you protected, keeping you safe, uh, letting people know where your line is. Okay. And when we talk about a relationship, I really want to kind of cover in terms of in terms of a relationship areas where boundaries need to be exercised. And so, again, I'm talking primarily about a couple relationship, but again, this applies in friendships. This applies in relationships at work with your coworkers, uh, especially with your family. That again, we're talking about being relational and we're talking about relationships. And so, when we talk about our couple relationship, I want to talk about areas emotionally where boundaries need to be intact. Okay. The first area is your feelings, right? Know that you have a right to your feelings, that what you feel, how you feel is your own, and you have to take responsibility for those feelings. Know that just because you feel something, though, does not mean that that is exactly what's going on. And that's why, again, in a couple relationship, you have to have a dialogue. You have to ask, hey, I'm feeling disrespected, or I'm feeling that you're not paying any attention to me, or I feel like you're giving me too much attention. But be able to express your feelings and know that you have a right to your feelings. Within a relationship, there are many, many dynamics. And again, they're all listed here. And as I walk through each one of these, uh, defining and talking about where and why boundaries are necessary in each of these areas. The next one is attitudes. Sometimes we show up in our relationships with an attitude. And when you are again talking about a couple relationship, you have to sometimes put your attitude in check. Because again, if this is someone that you care about, someone that you love, that you want to make sure that your attitude is loving, that it is nurturing, that it is caring, that it's not vile, it's not vicious, it's not mean, and it doesn't cause harm. So there needs to be a boundary around how you show up in terms of your attitude. Not to say that you can't be angry or that you can't be frustrated or disappointed, but even in those emotions and in those feelings and having those attitudes, you still have to show up knowing that I want to remain intact in my relationship. And so the boundary is I'm not going to say certain things. I'm not going to do certain things that I know will harm or cause injury to my mate. And so we have to, again, have boundaries around our attitudes, even when it might be an unpleasant attitude or an attitude that often can kind of go awry. We're not going to allow that. That's the boundary that you're going to set. The next one is values. When you talk about values, we all have personal values that we ascribe to. The values sometimes dictate our belief system, how we feel, what we contribute to, what we believe in. And so your values should not be something that you have to sacrifice, that you have to alter, or that you have to diminish to be in your relationship. The person should honor and respect and allow you to be who you are. You shouldn't have to morph or change into something, particularly your main core values of who you are and what you believe in. Love, of course, in a couple relationship, there should be some love. And again, love takes time. This can kind of go awry when you kind of open yourself up too soon before you really know a person, before you know their character, that you kind of fall in love with the package and not necessarily know what's inside the package. And so it takes time and allow yourself to learn and study and come to know a person before you open up your heart, before you open up and share things that you can't get back. Your choices. We all have choices. And in making choices, your choices are yours. Again, that's what belongs to you. That's what you have a right to. That's what you're accountable for. And so no one should be telling you choices to make or what you should do. And of course, with your partner, you're going to get input. That's the dialogue that you have, that's the conversations that you have. But in terms of telling you what to do and making you do, you should always have a choice. And it goes both ways. It's reciprocal. Same thing with your partner. You shouldn't be telling your partner what they should do and how they should do it. But being able to have a dialogue and come to a mutual agreement. When you talk about a marital relationship, you have to negotiate and compromise because there are going to be differences, and you should be able to have enough dialogue that you can come to a mutual agreement, that you can come to something that feels like a win win for both of you and not a win lose. We have desires that need to be met. And again, dialogue is necessary because what I like, you may not like. And so we have to talk about how do we make sure that my need is met as well as you being comfortable where you are. And then, of course, our thoughts. Being very, very mindful of our thoughts, because sometimes if we can stew in a negative thought, we begin to act on that thought. So you have to be mindful. You have to put boundaries. Right. You know what? I'm not even going to think that about my partner. I'm not even going to say that to myself about my partner. I'm going to keep my thoughts pure. I'm going to keep my thoughts respectful. I'm going to honor my partner even when I'm not feeling good about them. And so, again, boundaries are necessary because they keep the relationship safe, but they also keep the relationship sacred. I like to say that boundaries keep your relationship safe and sacred. And then, personally and physically, there are boundaries that you kind of have to keep intact. Your body, your physical body, know that your skin is a boundary because everything within your skin belongs to you. And so your body belongs to you, and you have a right to say no. You have a right to be comfortable in your body and be comfortable with touch, be comfortable with embraces. And again, paying attention to how you feel in situations kind of lets you know whether there is a boundary that needs to be set. You have a right to set boundaries around your resources, and everything that you own is a resource. Your money, your time, your talent, all of these things are resources. And so you have a say in how you expend them, how you use them, how you share them, how you give them. And you can set boundaries around that, again, paying attention to how it feels. If it doesn't feel good, you kind of have to stop and process, well, why doesn't it feel good? What's going on? And you may need to decide that you don't want to participate, or that you don't want to give, or you don't want to contribute. Your time. Time is a big resource. How you spend your time, where you give your time. And again, that's something that you can set a boundary on. I can't do that for you. We can do it over the weekend, but in terms of during the week, I'm not going to be able to get to it. Um, who you give your time to, you can set boundaries around. The next one I have is behaviors, how you show up, how you act, what you do. There should be some boundaries around that. And again, thinking about a couple relationship, there's just certain behaviors that shouldn't be allowed or tolerated. Name calling, lying, cheating, um, uh, showing disrespect. These are behaviors that you have to have boundaries around. Needs to be certain things that are allowed and certain things that are not allowed. And then I wanted to include children. Again, thinking about um, relationships, dating relationships, and you have children. When are the children introduced to someone that you're dating? You need to know what your parameter is for that. Is it when I know that this relationship is serious and this person is going to be around? Um, you shouldn't introduce your children to every single person that you date because they may not be around, it may not last. And so, again, you're going to take your time and decide when when you allow your children to be around someone that you're dating. Any thoughts, comments? Again, put them in the chat and I can come back and we can discuss them. I'll add any feedback that I have, and then would love to hear your feedback as well. So know that boundary setting is not giving an ultimatum. It is opening up for a dialogue so that we can have a conversation that allows us both to feel good and for both of us to kind of get our needs met in the relationship. Let's see. I want to talk about what boundaries do. Boundaries define, again, what you're responsible and accountable for. Boundaries define what belongs to you. Uh, Boundaries define and determine what you are going to allow and what you will not allow. Boundaries also define the line that can't be crossed. And everybody should have a line that can't be crossed, particularly in relationships, things that are just not okay, things that you are not going to allow. Boundaries keep the bad stuff out, but they also allow the good stuff to come in for you to experience the joy, the happiness, the fulfillment of the relationship. And as I have already said, that boundaries keep the relationship safe and sacred. Keys to boundary setting. Again, pay attention to how you feel. When something doesn't feel right, process what is going on. Why am I feeling this way? Is someone being intrusive to me? Is someone being aggressive with me? Is someone being inappropriate with me? What is going on and why am I feeling uncomfortable? Process your feelings. Decide what you need to do. Sometimes the feeling may be coming from not the current situation. So take the time to process. Hello, I see we have a few more people who have joined. Put your name in the chat so I know who's with me tonight. Thirdly, be aware of boundary pushers. And what I mean by that is that there are people who ignore boundaries. You can say no and they kind of keep on coming. You can ask um, for them to stop and they kind of keep going. And so know that with boundary pushers and people who violate and ignore your boundaries, you have to be very firm. Sometimes you have to remove yourself. Sometimes people that are on your front row who ignore and take advantage, you have to move them. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to cut them, but you may have to move them so that they don't always have direct access to you. So be aware of boundary pushers. Be aware of people who do not honor your no. They can be very intrusive, they can be aggressive, and they can be very manipulative. And so, again, you want to be able to uh, have a gauge on who you allow in and who you don't. Know that you have a right to say no. Sometimes manipulative people and people who are users um, will make you feel guilty for saying no, but you have a right to say no. And when someone is making you feel guilty because you said no, that is a form of manipulation. And that is a very unhealthy dynamic, particularly in a couple relationship. But again, you can see it with friends, you can see it with coworkers, sometimes you can even see it within your own family members. Um, so be aware of guilt, and particularly when you're feeling guilty or someone is making you feel guilty to get you to do something they want you to do, that oftentimes is not even your responsibility. Um, think of boundary setting as exercising your voice. You can exercise your voice. You can state how you feel, what you need, what you want, and that's okay. You have a right to do that. You have a right to do that within your relationship. That again, the boundary is there because it allows the relationship to be safe and sacred. It keeps the relationship intact. It keeps the relationship defined so that I know my role, I know what you need. I'm not going to cross those lines where you feel violated or hurt or betrayed, and neither am I. And so it keeps again the dialogue open so that we can revisit what didn't feel good and we can talk about what does feel good in the relationship. Again, setting boundaries is not giving an ultimatum. It's allowing and opening up a dialogue to happen so that we can talk about what our needs and how our needs can be met in a relationship. And remember that we enter relationships to get our emotional needs met. That's why we're in relationship. So if the needs aren't being met, it probably does not feel good being in the relationship. But let me let you know what I need, and you can tell me whether you can meet that need or not. And again, it's an ongoing dialogue that can happen. Relationships evolve. They are not uh, um, static. They move. They change. They evolve. And as we grow and develop and evolve, our needs change. And so I need to let you know, yeah, 2 years ago I needed that, but I don't need that now. Now I need this. And again, the dialogue helps to get those needs met within the relationship. Anybody had that experience in your relationship where needs changed? Something that you needed a while ago is no longer that important. And now there's something else that you need. Forgiveness is the other topic that I kind of wanted to cover today. Oh my God, it's already 8:27. Um, and in a couple relationship, forgiveness is something that always restores the relationship back to the good place. Forgiveness is also something that you have to do over and over and over in a couple relationship. Because again, think about it. It's the people that we love, it's the people that we care about, it's the people that we're close to that are able to hurt us, that are the ones who betray us or disappoint us or hurt us. And they are able to do that because we care, because we love them. And so when those violations occur, forgiveness is what's necessary to restore the person and the relationship back to the good place. And so it's something that we have to learn how to do. Forgiveness is also something that sometimes we're not taught, or what we are taught about forgiveness can be absolutely incorrect. Because sometimes we're taught, well, you can forgive them, but don't forget. And that's a whole nother uh, talk therapy live in terms of that statement. So I'm not going to go into that in terms of forgiving and forgetting, because in forgiveness, we actually wipe the slate clean. We're not remembering the violation. However, I do need to remember if there is someone who will violate me and hurt me, that maybe, again, I just need to move them so that they don't have access to be able to hurt me over and over again. Uh, in a couple relationship, I really wanted to focus tonight on an apology because in a couple relationship, when forgiveness is necessary, it often requires an apology. And many times, particularly in therapy, one of the things that I heard here is that he didn't apologize or she didn't apologize or apology wasn't sincere. They didn't really mean it. She just said, I'm sorry. And so I wanted to talk about what an apology is and what an apology does. An apology is an affirmation that says, I value you, I heard you, I wronged you, I care about you, and I want to be restored back to you. It does all of that when it's done properly. In its most basic form, it's saying, I'm sorry. But a sincere apology, however, takes ownership, offers respect, and says, I did not honor you as my friend, as my spouse, as my significant other. It also says that the person's feelings matter to you and that you did not like what you did and that you have hurt them and injured them. And so you want to do course correction. An apology also says that you want to make it right, right? And that you are going to change your behavior. Whatever it was that was done that caused injury or hurt or betrayal, I'm going to repent and change that behavior. I'm not going to engage in that behavior again. When you apologize, that's what you're saying. I'm not going to do it again. And because I'm not going to do it again, hopefully you will allow me to restore the relationship and restore being in right relationship with you. So an apology becomes very, very necessary in terms of forgiveness and in terms of, again, course correction. An apology should include humility, compassion, respect, connection, remorse, a heart that's seeking peace, taking ownership of your actions or your what you did, and a willingness to change, of course, and it should be passionate. So I want you to think about the last time that you apologized to someone. Were all of those elements included? And when those elements are included, it does feel sincere. It does cause heart change when an apology, particularly in a couple relationship, includes all of these elements. Uh, Here, I want to talk about again what an apology does. And oh my goodness. Here, a sincere and effective apology is a powerful because it's redeeming. Again, it restores. It's healing. And that's the heart change. The heart softens. You open up. It has a psychological benefit when there is a proper and correct apology. It allows the injured party to heal. But again, an apology isn't always necessary for someone to forgive or for someone to heal. I do want to say that an apology is not necessary for you to forgive or for you to heal. I'm talking about an apology here because we're talking about a couple relationship. We're talking about two people that are there, that are present. And so, again, if I'm waking up with you every morning and you've done something to hurt me, it is important that I know that you're remorseful and that you're sorry and that you're going to change your behavior. And an apology does that. Receiving an apology has a positive physical effect on the body. It reduces blood pressure, it slows your heart rate, and your breathing becomes slower and more steady. So it relaxes you, it puts you in a place of peace. And the emotional benefits of a apology is that it releases you from the anger, from the fear, from the shame sometimes. And sometimes, of course, remember when someone has hurt us and violated, we can't sleep. And so an apology allows you to have peaceful sleep at night. And we all want peaceful sleep. So an apology really matters in a couple relationship. And it's more than just saying, I am sorry. I didn't mean it. An apology includes so much more and does so much more. So, in forgiveness, I really want you to focus on learning how to apologize with meaning and with sincerity that causes heart change, because that's what it can do. In a couple relationship, forgiveness and apologizing is necessary, and it has to be done over and over and over. Because you are a couple, apologizing should always be a part of forgiving. An apology is necessary for forgiveness, is not necessary for forgiveness to happen. But again, in a couple relationship, when you're going to see that person again, it really helps to have an apology. Forgiveness, again, restores you back to the good place, and that's where you want to be. We also know that forgiveness is a Bible mandate. And forgiveness is a process that starts by you making a decision that you are going to forgive. Unless you make that decision that I'm going to forgive, you can walk in unforgiveness for years. So you have to make a conscious cognitive decision. I'm going to forgive. I'm going to let this go. Forgiveness is a letting go. And I think, yeah, that's my last slide. So again, Any comments or thoughts in terms of my viewers that you'd like to, or any questions that you may have that you'd like me to answer in terms of boundaries in a relationship and forgiveness and an apology in a relationship? I can take any questions or comments. I see Yuna has joined us. Good to see you, Yuna. Noreen, Nadera is on. Very good. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you. Noreen says, well said and explained. So, again, these are couple concerns. And as a professional counselor, I do have several services that I offer for couples. I have couple counseling, and in the month of February, I'm also offering a couple special where you get 3 sessions for $350, and that's about 20% off of 3 sessions. So, in this month of love, take advantage, get a tune up on your relationship. I also have premarital counseling. If you're considering and in a serious relationship and considering um, getting married, I offer premarital counseling. And I have a service called ICU, which stands for Intensive Couple Unification. And this service is for couples that are really in distress and in a bad place and at the point of really giving up on their relationship, but don't want to. It's where I work with you for a minimum of 2 hours, but up to 4 hours to kind of get you on track and determine whether or not the relationship can be saved. So I have several several services for couples that are available. If you're interested in any of the services, you can call and take advantage of the services that I have. Um, you can call the office or go to my website, which is www.suddenlypc, and I'd be more than happy to be your therapist. Again, any other comments or questions from any of our viewers tonight? If not, tune in next week for part 3 of the ingredients of a great relationship. And thank you so much for joining me tonight on Talk Therapy Live. Thank you so much.